Millions of tons of food, harvested in just a few short weeks. Every summer, across the fields of France, an enormous system begins to move before sunrise. Trucks roll onto dirt roads. Harvesters warm up in the dark. Workers spread across endless rows of crops while heat, rain, and time begin pressing against the entire season.
France produces one of the largest agricultural outputs in Europe, from fruits and vegetables to grains and oil crops. The country moves enormous volumes of food through a tightly timed harvesting network worth tens of billions of dollars every year.
But none of it waits. Once the crops reach peak ripeness, the countdown begins. Every delayed hour increases losses. Sweetness changes. Texture softens. Entire shipments can lose value before they even leave the field.
That pressure is why modern harvesting in France operates less like traditional farming and more like a giant industrial system running at full speed.
As the first sunlight reaches southern France, the melon fields are already alive with movement. Row after row stretches across the horizon while workers move through the plants almost nonstop. In just one season, hundreds of thousands of tons of melons must be collected before the summer heat destroys their quality.
Unlike many large-scale crops, melons are still heavily dependent on manual harvesting. Machines remain too rough for the fruit, so speed comes from coordination instead.
Workers bend low beneath the leaves, cutting each stem by hand with quick, practiced movements. Buckets fill rapidly beside them. Then, almost without stopping, the fruit is transferred into giant containers, waiting at the edge of the field.
Dozens of people move in synchronized patterns across the rows. No loud engines, no giant steel systems, just continuous human rhythm operating under extreme time pressure.
And once one field is finished, another is already waiting. The pressure only grows stronger when peach season begins. Under intense summer temperatures, entire orchards race against heat that can reduce sweetness in just days. France harvests hundreds of thousands of tons of peaches and nectarines every year, and most of them still require careful human handling.
Peaches bruise extremely easily during harvest. Even small surface damage can reduce commercial value, which is why many orchards still rely heavily on manual picking crews despite advances in automation.
Workers weave through the trees carrying heavy crates beneath the sun. Every fruit is twisted gently from the branch and lowered carefully into containers one by one. No violent machines. No aggressive harvesting systems. Just speed, repetition, and exhaustion.
Because once the fruit reaches peak ripeness, the transportation window becomes very small. Harvest crews often work continuously to move the crop before quality begins to decline.
But in other parts of France, harvesting becomes far more aggressive. Olive season transforms quiet groves into industrial extraction zones. Giant shaker machines clamp tightly onto tree trunks before unleashing violent bursts of vibration. It's powerful enough to strip entire branches clean within seconds.
France remains an important producer in the European olive oil market, where speed during harvest is critical for maintaining oil quality before processing begins.
Olives rain downward onto massive catching systems while leaves and branches explode through the air. Inside the machines, conveyors, and vibrating screens immediately begin separating debris from the fruit. Dust rises behind the harvesters as thousands of olives surge into storage containers almost nonstop.
The entire system is designed to reduce handling time between harvest and processing. Once collected, the olives are quickly transported toward extraction facilities, where timing directly affects oil quality.
And tomatoes push this industrial scale even further. Across massive fields, giant harvesters crawl through the crops like moving factories. Entire rows disappear beneath the machines while conveyor systems thunder continuously inside the steel body.
Modern tomato harvesting in France is now highly mechanized. Specialized harvesters cut the plants near ground level before transferring everything into onboard processing systems.
Inside the machine, violent shaking systems separate tomatoes from stems and dirt in seconds. Soil falls back onto the field. Broken vines are discarded immediately. Meanwhile, endless streams of red tomatoes continue climbing upward through vibrating metal conveyors toward waiting transport trucks.
The process happens continuously without interruption. Harvesting, sorting, cleaning, and loading all happen simultaneously while the machines keep moving across the field.
What once required huge crews of workers can now be processed by giant mechanical systems operating from sunrise to sunset. But even France's most advanced machines still face one major problem. Some crops are simply too delicate, too fragile. or too valuable to harvest this way. And that is where the real battle between humans and machines begins. And once these machines start moving, entire sections of farmland begin disappearing behind them.
Rye harvesting is one of the clearest examples. Across massive grain fields, giant combines sweep forward, using headers wide enough to consume multiple rows at once. What once required huge groups of workers can now be processed continuously by a single machine crossing the field.
Dust clouds rise behind the harvesters while dry stalks vanish beneath spinning blades. Inside the machine body, heavy threshing systems begin tearing through the crop almost instantly.
Rotating drums separate grain from stalks, while vibrating cleaning systems remove husks, straw, and debris at the same time. Clean grain is then transferred upward into onboard storage tanks before unloading directly into transport vehicles.
The machine never truly stops. It cuts, separates, cleans, and stores everything while still moving forward across the field.
That nonstop processing speed is critical during grain harvest windows, where weather changes can quickly reduce crop quality or interrupt entire operations.
But some harvesting systems operate even more like moving factories. Tobacco harvesters advance through the fields with mechanical precision, swallowing entire rows in seconds. Thick green leaves disappear into the machine while conveyor systems immediately begin lifting and organizing the crop internally.
Modern tobacco harvesting reduces labor demands by automating several handling stages at once. After cutting, the leaves move through internal conveyor channels toward organized storage systems for drying and later fermentation.
Metal paddles rise and fall in endless rhythm, while fresh leaves slide upward through the machine body. Engines roar. Conveyors rattle. Everything moves continuously, with almost no wasted motion.
The goal is not simply harvesting. It is maintaining uninterrupted flow from field to processing.
And nowhere is that industrial flow more visible than in green pea harvesting. Across the fields, giant machines operate like mobile processing plants. Entire plants are pulled inside while rotating systems begin separating peas from pods almost immediately.
Inside the threshing chamber, rotating drums and separation systems work carefully to remove seeds without crushing them. The process must balance speed with precision to avoid damaging the crop during extraction.
Vines whip violently through the machinery while thousands of peas rattle across metal channels beneath the machine. Waste material is expelled back onto the field, while clean product continues climbing toward onboard storage tanks.
By the end of the day, massive volumes of peas can move directly from field harvesting into transport trucks with very little manual handling involved.
Modern farming no longer waits for processing plants. The factory now moves with the harvest itself. And the machines keep getting larger. Carrot harvesters grip tightly onto the green tops before pulling entire rows directly from the soil. Dirt explodes downward from vibrating conveyors as endless streams of carrots begin climbing through the machinery.
The harvesting systems are designed to reduce damage while maximizing speed. Conveyors remove excess soil and leaves automatically before transferring the crop toward storage containers.
Orange roots tumble upward across moving belts, while loose dirt rains back onto the field below. Every section of the machine vibrates, lifts, separates, or redirects material nonstop.
The entire operation depends on synchronization. If one stage slows down, the efficiency of the whole system drops immediately.
But potatoes push industrial harvesting to another level completely. Massive digging blades cut deep beneath the soil before lifting entire waves of earth upward into giant processing. Systems mounted directly behind the harvester.
Modern potato harvesters separate enormous amounts of soil from the crop while still moving continuously across the field. Vibrating screens and conveyor systems reduce waste before workers perform final onboard sorting.
The machines shake violently as dirt crashes downward through steel screens. Potatoes surge upward through conveyor tunnels, while workers rapidly remove damaged tubers before storage containers overflow behind them.
Harvesting, cleaning, sorting, and loading all happen simultaneously inside one moving system.
What looks like farming from a distance is now closer to industrial processing on wheels. But even these giant machines still face one major weakness. Some fruits are simply too delicate, too soft, too valuable. And in those fields, human hands still outperform automation.
Modern harvesting machines were built for one purpose above everything else: speed. Because across France, millions of tons of crops must move through the fields before, whether moisture or spoilage begin destroying value.
For some crops, speed is no longer the biggest challenge. Precision is. Because even the most advanced harvesting machines still struggle with one problem modern agriculture has never fully solved: delicate fruit.
Many high-value crops remain difficult to automate because small impacts, bruises, or cuts can immediately reduce shelf life and market quality during transportation.
That is why kiwi harvesting in France still depends heavily on human hands. Inside the orchards, workers move carefully beneath hanging vines, carrying small baskets at their sides. Each kiwi is cut individually using scissors while leaving behind a short stem attached to the fruit.
That small stem helps reduce moisture loss during storage and transport. Without it, the fruit can deteriorate much faster after harvest.
There are no violent shaking systems here, no giant conveyor machines swallowing entire rows. Slow, repetitive precision repeated thousands of times across the orchard. Workers inspect every fruit by hand before lowering it gently into baskets to avoid surface damage.
Several robotic kiwi harvesting systems have already been tested in Europe. Some are capable of identifying ripe fruit and simulating human picking movements with impressive accuracy.
But the machines remain extremely expensive, and human labor still moves faster through the fields. For now, people continue outperforming automation.
That balance between machinery and manual harvesting appears across many other crops as well. Lettuce harvesting, for example, often combines both systems together.
On smaller farms, workers move row by row, carrying knives, cutting each lettuce head near the root before placing it into crates by hand. The process looks simple, but once production scales upward, simplicity is no longer fast enough.
Large farms increasingly use conveyor-assisted harvesting systems to reduce handling time while still protecting delicate crops from damage.
Workers cut the lettuce manually. But instead of carrying everything themselves, they place each head directly onto moving conveyor belts traveling beside them. The vegetables glide slowly toward sorting stations at the rear, while the harvest line continues moving through the field almost nonstop.
The system reduces labor strain while maintaining product quality during collection and packaging.
It is not full automation. It is cooperation between people and machines. And nowhere is human precision more important than apple harvesting. Fresh-eating apples are extremely sensitive to surface damage. One small scratch, one bruise. Even pressure from rough handling can destroy the fruit's commercial value completely.
Unlike processing apples used for cider or juice, table apples must maintain nearly perfect visual quality throughout transportation and retail storage.
That pressure changes the entire harvesting process. Workers move slowly through the orchards, twisting each apple gently before separating it from the branch. The fruit is lowered carefully into baskets one by one, while ladders shift constantly between the trees. Everything becomes slower, more controlled, more exhausting.
France produces well over 1 million tons of table apples during strong harvest years, making careful manual harvesting essential for maintaining export quality standards.
But among all these delicate crops, peaches may be the most physically demanding of all. Under brutal summer heat, workers climb ladders carrying heavy bins across the orchards for hours without stopping. The fine fuzz covering the fruit irritates exposed skin while temperatures continue rising throughout the day.
Many harvesting crews are paid according to output volume, meaning speed directly affects earnings during the short harvest window.
That pressure follows every movement. Up the ladder, down the ladder, reach, twist, place, repeat again and again beneath the heat. Banafta bin slowly fills with fruit, while trucks wait nearby to move the harvest before quality begins declining.
The entire system depends on balancing careful handling with extreme harvesting speed during a very limited seasonal window.
And even after all this effort, the biggest threat still hasn't arrived yet, because delicate fruit is not only fighting machines, it is fighting time itself. And once the harvest window begins closing, entire industries start racing against spoilage. Harvesting delicate fruit is already difficult, but once the crops leave the field, an even bigger problem begins: time.
Many fresh products begin losing quality almost immediately after harvest. Sugar levels change, moisture escapes, texture softens. Entire shipments can lose value if transportation and processing slow down even briefly.
Apricots are one of the clearest examples. Across southern France, workers move through orchards searching for fruit that has reached the exact moment of ripeness. Yellow skin deepens into orange and red tones while the fruit softens slightly beneath the fingers.
Apricots have an extremely short storage life compared to many commercial crops. Even under cooled conditions, quality declines quickly after harvest.
That small window changes everything. Workers harvest carefully, but rapidly, lowering the fruit into crates before vehicles immediately begin transporting the crop away from the orchards. There is no time to slow down, because every passing day reduces freshness.
Modern fruit logistics depend heavily on speed between harvesting, cooling, packaging, and retail distribution.
And nowhere is timing more important than wine grapes. Across France, entire vineyards enter harvest mode almost simultaneously once sugar levels and acidity reach the correct balance. If the harvest starts too early, wine quality changes. Too late, entire vintages can suffer.
France remains one of the largest wine producers in the world, processing enormous grape volumes within extremely narrow seasonal windows.
That pressure transforms the vineyards into moving industrial systems. Grape harvesters advance through the rows while powerful shaking mechanisms begin vibrating the vines with controlled force. Clusters break loose instantly and crash downward into catching systems mounted beneath the machine.
The vibration must remain strong enough to remove ripe grapes while avoiding major damage to the vines themselves.
Inside the machines, conveyors surge continuously while grapes flood through metal channels toward onboard storage bins. Entire vineyard rows disappear in minutes beneath the harvesters. But once demanded, huge labor crews can now be completed at industrial speed.
Mechanized grape harvesting dramatically reduces collection time during critical harvest windows, allowing vineyards to move fruit toward processing facilities much faster.
Because once the grapes are ready, delay becomes dangerous. But not every harvesting system relies on massive machinery. Honey production operates under a completely different kind of pressure. Beekeepers move carefully through active colonies using smoke to calm aggressive swarms before removing heavy frames filled with honey.
The process requires precision because damaging the hive structure or disturbing the colony too aggressively can immediately create safety risks for workers.
Bees swirl through the air while thick golden honey glows inside the combs. Every frame is handled slowly before entering extraction systems where centrifugal force separates the honey from the wax. Then the flow begins. Golden streams pour downward through filters, while the machinery hums quietly beneath the processing room.
Even smaller-scale agricultural systems still depend heavily on timing, coordination, and controlled processing conditions.
And then the speed returns again. Cherry harvest season transforms quiet orchards into nonstop collection zones. Workers move carefully through the branches, cutting clusters by hand while keeping stems attached to protect the fruit during transportation.
Fresh cherries bruise easily and lose quality quickly, which is why careful handling remains important even during large-scale harvesting operations.
But once production scales upward, machines begin taking over. Mechanical arms clamp tightly onto tree trunks before violent shaking systems unleash sudden bursts of force across the orchard. Waves of cherries rain downward onto giant collection surfaces, while conveyors immediately begin carrying the harvest away. A process that once required hours can now happen within minutes.
Mechanized harvesting dramatically increases collection speed during short seasonal harvest windows.
Even onions operate under strict timing systems. Unlike many crops harvested in a single pass, onions often require two separate stages. First, machines lift the bulbs from the soil and leave them exposed across the field surface to dry naturally beneath the sun.
That drying period helps toughen the outer skin and improves long-term storage stability after transportation.
Only after that process ends do harvesting machines return again. Conveyors begin lifting endless rows of onions from the dry soil while dust clouds rise across the fields. The crop flows upward through sorting systems before disappearing into giant storage containers waiting nearby.
Modern harvesting is no longer just about collecting food. It is also about preservation, transportation, timing, and survival after the harvest itself.
Because behind every successful season lies an invisible system operating almost nonstop machines. Workers, drivers, sorting crews, processing plants, all racing together against spoilage before millions of tons of food disappear. And behind that entire system stands a workforce most people never see. By the time harvest season reaches full speed across France, the fields never truly rest anymore. One machine leaves, another arrives. One crop disappears, another is already waiting.
Modern agriculture now depends on continuous coordination between harvesting crews, transportation systems, storage operations, and industrial processing facilities operating across enormous distances.
Even hay harvesting follows that same pressure. Across wide grass fields, giant mowing machines sweep forward in long synchronized lines, cutting massive layers of grass close to the ground, while the scent of fresh vegetation fills the air.
After cutting, the grass must dry carefully before storage. Moisture levels remain critical because excess humidity can destroy feed quality during long-term preservation.
That is why the fields continue moving for days after the first cut. Machines return again and again, turning the drying grass beneath the sun while giant rows stretch across the landscape like endless green waves. Then the final harvest begins. Massive collection systems vacuum the dry material upward into processing chambers before transporting everything toward livestock supply chains.
Even crops that appear simple often rely on carefully timed harvesting cycles to avoid spoilage and storage losses.
And some harvest systems transform entire landscapes completely. When lavender season arrives, giant purple fields spread across the horizon, while industrial cutting machines move through the flowers with mechanical precision. Beautiful from a distance, industrial up close.
Lavender harvesting must happen rapidly once flowering peaks in order to preserve oil quality before processing begins.
Sharp cutting systems slice through entire rows while conveyors compress huge volumes of flowers into dense bundles moving continuously through the machinery. Within hours, entire fields vanish. Everything is transported toward extraction facilities, where the flowers become essential oils used across global markets.
Modern agricultural systems are designed to reduce delays between harvesting and industrial processing as much as possible.
But behind all this machinery, one reality never disappears: people under the summer heat. Peach workers continue climbing ladders carrying heavy bins hour after hour across the orchards. Reach, twist, lower, repeat, again and again.
Many seasonal workers operate under output-based payment systems, where daily earnings depend directly on harvesting speed and volume.
The pressure becomes physical. Sweat runs down exposed skin while fine peach fuzz causes constant irritation beneath the heat. Trucks wait nearby. Bins slowly fill. Tire crews move nonstop because every delay threatens the value of the harvest itself.
Despite major advances in agricultural automation, many delicate harvesting operations still depend heavily on repetitive manual labor performed at enormous scale.
And sometimes humans and machines now work side by side. In cabbage fields, workers still cut individual heads manually before placing them onto moving conveyor systems traveling directly behind them.
Conveyor-assisted harvesting reduces labor demand while maintaining product quality and improving transportation efficiency during collection.
The workers never stop moving. Cut, lift, place. The conveyor carries everything away while the harvest line advances slowly across the field. Not full automation, not fully manual. It's just another version of modern agriculture adapting under pressure.
Because feeding modern populations no longer depends on farming alone, it depends on coordination, transportation, timing, machinery, storage systems, fuel, labor, and millions of synchronized decisions happening across enormous supply networks.
Behind every crate of fruit, every bottle of olive oil, every loaf of bread, every supermarket shelf, exists an invisible system operating under constant pressure. Fields must be harvested before heat destroys quality. Machines must keep moving before weather interrupts operations. Workers must continue despite exhaustion. Millions of tons of food must travel across Europe before time finally wins.
Modern harvesting is no longer simply agriculture. It has become one of the largest continuous industrial systems sustaining modern civilization.
And most people never see it happening till the next harvest season begins all over again. Which harvesting process surprised you the most? And do you think machines will ever fully replace the people behind these massive food systems?